We are in the third Sidra, the third Parsha of BERESHIT. Last week we went back and did BERESHIT because somehow or other it gets neglected every year because of Simchas Torah coming out after the Shir. So we usually start with Noach. Last week we did BERESHIT instead of Noach. This week is the third Sidra, which is LECH-LECHA. And before we start, before we start with the Sidra, I just want to explain the way the Rebbe learns, what is evident about the way the Rebbe learns from the Sikha that we're going to be doing tonight. The Sikha we're going to be doing tonight, by the way, I have to announce it, is from volume 15. It's the third Sikha on page 83. So, the way the Rebbe learns is astonishingly, brilliantly deep, in that he has a perspective which transcends what's apparently going on and is able to unify that perspective with everything that exists. And it's an incredible thing to watch. So I'm going to give you an example of that before we start the Sikha. One of the things that exists, one of the parts of this Sedra is the story of Bris Milah and how Avram was commanded by Hashem to circumcise himself. And I don't want to do a shir on Bris Milah tonight, so I'm going to try and keep this short without going into the whole story of what was as the mitzvah unfolds. But I just want to zero in on a perspective that the Rebbe has about this. There is an argument in the Midrash that Rebbe quotes between Yitzhak and Ishmael. Now everyone knows Avram couldn't have children, or Sarah couldn't have children, so he had Sarah gave him her maidservant Hagar to marry. He married Hagar, and she had a baby straight away, Yishmael, and Yishmael is the head of the Arab nations, and for 13 years, Avram had no children with Sarah. 13 years after Yishmael was born, Sarah gave birth to Yitzhak. Some time later, they get Avram gets the mitzvah to circumcise himself and the children. And there is a medrash which has an argument between Yitzhak when he's a little bit older and Yishmael, his stepbrother, or half-brother, or whatever it is.
Brother.
Why is it? Yes, brother, through the mother.
Yeah.
So, and what's the argument? The argument is this, that Yitzhak was circumcised on the 8th day, and of course didn't know what was happening to him, right? Because he was an 8-day-old child, baby. And Yishmael was the 13 and made the choice to be circumcised and endure the pain and so you know the story that Avram sent Hagar away and with Yishmael together with the boy. Why he sent them away was that the two boys were arguing all the time about whose bris was better. Who was better? Was it better to be Ishmael? Ishmael claimed that he was superior to, and this is an important thing in terms of the estate, the will, the passing on, the inheritance. And the inheritance has a whole lot of spiritual inyonim as well. So Yishmael says, how can you compare you to me? I mean, you were 8 days old, you didn't know what you were doing, you didn't have any choice in the matter. On the other hand, I chose to do this. It's my merit. I have the merit of it, and because of that, my bris is superior and I'm superior. Yitzhak said, no, that's not right. Even though that's the case, my bris is superior. And the question is, what's his argument? What's he even got to say? Because at first glance, wouldn't you think that Yishmael, I mean, the guy is 13 years old and he undertakes to do this, no anesthetic, pain. So you really salute the boy's resolution, and you have to understand how he's described in the Torah. You understand that he's described as and all Arabs as a wild donkey. That's how the Torah calls him, a wild donkey, right? And yet this wild donkey chooses to have the bris. And what's the psak din from Avram Avinu? The psak din is that Yitzhak is right. Why is Yitzhak right? So the Rebbe takes this one tiny little thing and makes it a clear, bright lit highway for you and me to understand who we are, because these first three sedras, we'll come to that in a minute. This is laying the groundwork. The Torah is not a history book. It's not a story book. It's a manual on how to live. For who? For Jews. That's who it was written for. So this manual of how to live for Jews needs to be understood at hundreds of levels. There's the story level, there's the history level, there's the people level, there's the morality level, there's the Torah level, there's the mitzvah level. All of these, but when the Rebbe learns, there's only one level, because everything comes together. Everything is clear from any simple example. He can take and extrapolate that into the whole way of life that you and I are supposed to lead. So what the Rebbe does with this argument between Yishmael and Yitzhak is that he explains why was Avram Avinu right in saying that it was Yitzhak. Because, says the Rebbe, you and I, if you're learning, you're a Jew and you're learning Torah, so you have to understand what you're learning. What is the basis of what you're learning? The basis of what you're learning is not that we chose God. We didn't choose God. God chose us. We are the Am Segula, we are the chosen people. Now, that isn't an issue of superiority. I keep saying this over and over again. This is an issue of responsibility. It's not something to get conceited about or arrogant about. It's a tremblingly important responsibility. But it's not our choice. It's not something, we didn't do anything to, quote, deserve it. You didn't choose who your mother was. You didn't choose who your father was. You didn't choose what time in history you were born, to whom you were born, where you were born. And just as that's true of everybody, a non-Jew has the opportunity to reach greatness by his own personal investment in his life. If he works hard and he's a good person, then he's going to achieve his level of greatness. For the whole rank and file of humanity, greatness is a reward. Greatness is a reward for a investment of the energy of the person trying to be great, trying to be successful. That is not Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael nothing to do with our input. Well, sorry, not nothing to do with our input, but The primary thing to understand is that we are a choice by Hashem and miraculous. We are a miraculous nation. There's no getting away from it. That's not a jingoistic thing to say. If you calculate, we keep saying this, talking about 0.01 or 0.02 of 1% of the world's population, and we outlive every host nation. We've outlived every pogrom, every Holocaust, and our history. I'm fond of repeating something that somebody once I learned from this rabbi. He used to call it, our history is a river of blood, a gutter of blood. But the reality is that we don't go away, we don't die, we don't finish, we're not over. Why not? Because our existence is miraculous, and our bond with our God is not forged by us. Our bond by our God is for us to recognize that we are chosen by Hashem to do a certain job. And therefore, in doing that certain job, you fulfill your destiny. Whereas a non-Jew, and it's not a put down in any way, it's not a criticism in any way, they are not so chosen, so their achievements are earned. What Yishmael is saying is, my achievements earned. I had the bris, I chose to have the bris, I'm a great man for having a bris. Correct, no argument. But is it the same bris that Yitzhak had? No, it's not. And Yitzhak had no input into it whatsoever. But what was his input? That his father accepted that his God dictated to him that was what he had to do, whether he understood it or not. An 8-year-old child doesn't understand anything. And the big milah, the big advantage that Yitzhak has over Yishmael is that he didn't understand it, that he's only an 8-year-old child, but that 8-year-old child is committed to God's direction. So the Rebbe explains that you and I need to get that as part of our base perspective, that when we talk about your and my life and Frank Smith's life, let's say Frank Smith's a Gentile, and allow him everything, that he's an honest man, that he's a decent man, that he's a good man, gives charity, looks after his parents, does all the things that a socially acceptable, top-rate human being does. That's got nothing to do with your and my life. Your and my life is that we have specific mitzvahs dictated to us by Hashem, and we have to have the level of obedience to do those, and in that we forge our relationship with Hashem. But we are not the primary mover of that relationship. Hashem is the primary mover of that relationship. And it's a very important perspective, because we look the same, we talk the same, but we are completely different. And if a Jew tries to live as a Gentile, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, I keep giving this example. I mean, who cares about Kremnizer? But I'm just telling you something that I've discovered. I've been in practice, I've had a legal practice for 56 years. I've acted for thousands and thousands of people. And in 56 years, it's been a successful practice, Baruch Hashem. And I can tell you that Jews who tried to follow the prescriptions of non-Jews as to what should make you happy and what should make you flower and grow, they live with nothing. I'm old now, I'm 82, Baruch Hashem Bli Ayin Hara, and I have clients who are older than me, and I keep repeating this, that they stand looking into their graves at Rookwood, and they've got $100 million, $200 million, and then they've got nothing. Parshat got nothing. They don't talk to their children anymore. the kids are on drugs, their grandchildren are on drugs. They don't understand what went wrong. What went wrong? The fact that they thought that they were the same as everybody else around them. We're not the same. It's not going to make you, you and I need a different form of nourishment. We have to accept that our nourishment comes from Hashem and that we need to be obedient to that dictation. Unlike a Gentile who earns his success. We don't earn our success. Our success, I've got to be careful how I'm wording this so you don't misunderstand it. I don't mean that once Hashem gives us a job to do, for example, give charity, give tzedakah, you have to participate. You have to do that. You have to do that with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. That's how we serve Hashem. That's what it says in the Shema. All your heart and all your soul and all your might. But at the end of the day, it's not our Kiddush. We are responding. We are responding to our God. A Gentile isn't responding to his God. A Gentile is making the relationship with his God from his perspective to God. Ours is from God to us. It's a different direction.
It's ingrained upon us.
It's a completely different direction, completely different perspective. Okay. L'chaim, l'chaim. So with that introduction, I'm going to try and do this Sikha review, because this requires the same retooling of perspective as what we've just been talking about. So let me start with the Sikha quotes something that the Frierdiker Rebbe said. So I have a translation here. I can do it in English. So the entry for the purpose of this tape for the 3rd of Heshvan, which was a few days ago, excuse me, the Hayom Yom says, Bereshit is a cheerful Sedra, even though its ending isn't pleasant. Noach has the flood, but the week ends on a happy note with the birth of Avram. But the really joyous week is that of Parshat LECH-LECHA. We live every day of the week with Avram, and who was the first to dedicate his life to spreading godliness in the world, and Avram bequeathed this self-sacrifice as an inheritance for all Jews. That means you and me. So I'm just going to repeat that in 2 words, and then we're going to flesh out what it really means. So we have 3 Sedras. The first 3 Sedras, number 1, the Rebbe is saying they are a unit. These first 3 Sedras, you may not have noticed it, I never noticed it, but they are a unit, and you can train ourselves to see how that unit works, because that unit is actually a roadmap for what you and I should be doing in our lives. So the Rebbe says this, that Bereshit is a cheerful Sedra because it's Hashem creating the world. So the world is beginning, that's a cheerful thing. Parshas Noach's not so cheerful because the world's being destroyed, but it finishes on a good note. But Avram Avinu, Avram, in Parshat LECH-LECHA, every word of the Sedra is about Avram, and every word of the Sedra is about you and I learning what Avram is bequeathing to us. What he's bequeathing to us is a different perspective. Is this perspective of our relationship with our God at a private level. So, let's first identify these 3 Sedras. They represent 3 different epochs, 3 different time periods. And these periods are time periods in your and my life. This is all the same code. We're always talking about the one. It's all Torah, as you learn it, is reducible to fundamental basics. So the 3 periods of this. The first period is the first Sedra Parshas, Genesis, BERESHIT, is Hashem pouring his light onto the world. Right? It's a spiritual Sedra. It's spiritual in the sense that it's all spiritual. Hashem is creating Gashmias from spirituality. It's yesh ma'ayin, something out of nothing. Comes a second Sedra, which is Parshas Noach, and it is physical. The world is judged. It's found to be evil. The world is destroyed, nearly destroyed, and all of this is a focus on physicality. Third Sedra, LECH-LECHA, comes of Rom, and he makes preparation for the combination of the physical and the spiritual, which at the end of the day is your and my purpose of living. So what is this preparation? Matan Torah. Let me revise with you quickly. I'm sure everybody remembers. Matan Torah is the moment in time when Hashem removed the brick wall, the concrete wall between physicality and spirituality. Prior to Matan Torah, you couldn't influence the spiritual with the physical, you couldn't influence the physical with the spiritual. After Matan Torah, not only could you do it, but we were appointed as an army through history to do that very job of combining the physical with the spiritual. Preparation for that was by Avram, because of what goes on in Sedra Parshas LECH-LECHA, which is what we're learning tonight. We won't spend time with too many examples of that, but the reality is that and in truth, you should know, there is a 4th period, which is after Matan Torah. We're talking, in Parshas LECH-LECHA, we're talking before Matan Torah. We're talking about BERESHIT, that's spiritual. We're talking about Noach, that's physical. We're talking about Avraham Avinu, that's preparation for Matan Torah. Then there's the 4th Tekufa, 4th period, where actually the barrier between physical and spiritual is removed. Hashem blows the whistle and says, here's the football, go and use it, run with it, make it work. Now, there's a fascinating, so how does the Rebbe see all these things as one thing? I'll give you an example. There's a fascinating thing that the Rebbe says that in Parshas BERESHIT, until Adam Rishon accesses the tree, there's no evil, right? In Parshas BERESHIT, in Parshas Noach, there's evil all around Noach. God says to Noach, build a teva and save your family, because you're all tzaddikim. Everybody else are behaving disgracefully. I've no room for them on the planet. You have to start again through you. So he takes his family on board. You know the whole story, and I want to ask you a question. How many Balchulas did he make? He was making the teva for 120 years. 120 years. Have a guess how many people he got to come and join him on the teva? Zero. Zero. He didn't get one person, you know. I used to learn with somebody who's dead now, never, but he used to say that he wouldn't daven in a shul where there weren't people who were breaking their teeth on the Kaddish. If he's in a shul where everyone knows how to say Kaddish off by heart, that's not a shul. That's a men's club. A shul is somewhere where you bring a yid who does. The first mitzvah is pruvaru, is to be fruitful and multiply. What does that mean spiritually? Get another Jew and make him into a real Jew. That's what it means spiritually. Huh?
Now it's as if you're meeting.
So
That's what it is.
he didn't get one Balchuga, right? So then we have the story with Zdoim and Moira, where Avram pleads with God that in the merit of tzaddikim, if there are a certain number of tzaddikim, starts with 50, 40, 30, 20, and then when there isn't a minion, he gives up. But he's pleading for other people, but he uses as a pedigree for that tzaddikim. He's not pleading for bad people. He's pleading for in the merit of the good people who are there. So the Rebbe says this is representative of the second level, where there's accessing goodness, and he's dependent on the goodness for it to work, but there's no real. What's the fourth period is Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu, when Am Yisrael goes wrong with the golden calf, and Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to God and he says, I want you to forgive them. If you not forgive them, write me out of your book. I'm not even prepared to live another day. So Noach didn't rescue one person. Avram Avinu tried to rescue, but he had to use their tzidkus as a merit, as a way of doing it. Didn't work because there weren't enough of them. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he went in there and he said, I don't care if they're evil or not. I don't care if they're good people or bad people. They're Jews. They're Am Yisrael. They're the people you've given the Torah to. They're the people that you've given the mission between then and the coming of Mashiach. Every guy that's born in Sydney or comes to Sydney, Australia in 2025 is going to be struggling with this business of being a Jew and what is his commitment and what's his reason for living and why is he, what happens when things go wrong and what happens when things go right. And he's full of 100 million questions. I'm telling you that if you put us through that and you don't forgive them, I'm out of here. So, says the Rebbe, this was all prepared for by Avram Avinu in Parshat LECH-LECHA. That's why it says that it's a happy Seder from beginning to end. Now, I want to go through a moshel that the Rebbe uses, an allegory or example. He uses one of the most favorite moshelim in Chassidus is that of the Rav and Talmud, the teacher and student. So the Rebbe says he's identified these three periods. I mean, nowhere is it written that the Torah is divided into periods. It's nowhere written that it's the first, second, and third Seder, and they must be a unit. These are things that the Rebbe finds and fleshes out and hangs before you, and all of a sudden, before it wasn't obvious at all of a sudden you begin to see a whole lot of different light as a result of it. So the Rebbe uses a common example in Chassidus. Teacher and student. So he said, he's showing you and me that everything in life, if the Torah says something, everything in life is reducible to this. Everything in life comes down to that code. So if there's the first Sedra is pure spirituality, the second Sedra is really about pure physicality. The third Sedra is the potential to meld them both together. And finally, Moshe Rabbeinu does that after Matan Torah. So the Rebbe says, you need evidence of this in something you and I can understand, physical, ordinary daily life. So let's take teacher and student. There is the first, what's the comparison to the first period? First period is where a teacher teaches a student. The teacher is teaching the student doesn't know anything about what the teacher's teaching him, and the teacher is simply teaching him. And when the lesson's over, the kid goes home and the teacher goes home. The teacher retains his knowledge. The kid may have some more knowledge, hopefully he has more knowledge, and that knowledge is accumulating. But that's it. The teacher, he's guaranteed his job for life because there's no interference with it. He knows more and therefore he's teaching. That's the first period. That's akin to Hashem pouring down his light without any participation other than being a receiver. The Rebbe is the teacher, the Talmud is the student. He is receiving the teacher's light without any. What's the second level? Second level is when the teacher's better than that, and he actually teaches the kid not only the information, but how to learn. That's a whole different madrega, it's a whole different level. He's teaching him now not only what it is that he's teaching him, but he's teaching him how to acquire that information, where to learn to look, where to learn to study, how to study. Active learning is better than passive learning. Learning out, you're sitting on your own in your house, in your room, and you're going to learn out aloud. You sound like a crazy man if you're learning out aloud, but the reality is that if you learn out aloud, your success rate is about 8 times better. I don't know if you know that. About 8 times better. Your attention level is about 8 times better. You do it out loud. Even better than that, pretend you've got a student in front of you and explain the information that you're learning to this pretending student. And then you learn even better. So that's the second level. That's the level where it's not spirituality anymore. It's the physicality of how to learn. But then there's the third level where the student gains enough wisdom from his learning to be able to teach himself, to be able to take students and teach those students to the level that he was learning from his teacher. And you can see with that, I mean, nobody learns like the Rebbe, but there are thousands and thousands of Lubavitchers around this planet today whose learning is just mind-boggling. They're just unbelievable. There are people who know Sikhs and Maimorim of the Rebbe off by heart. You know, but I don't know if you know, but when the Rebbe used to give these Sikhs on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and it couldn't be recorded, he used to have a group of guys who'd sit in the shul called the Choizrim, and they couldn't write. They couldn't write because it was Shabbos. They couldn't record it. They couldn't do it. They had to just sit. And you got no idea. The Rebbe used to speak. I mean, I was at a Fabringen that the Rebbe spoke 6 hours. 6 hours. No notes. And, you know, he'd say a sikha, then everybody would sing nigunim, then he'd say a maima, everybody would sing nigunim, everybody would say l'chaim, to the Rebbe with tiny little cups. Some people brought their own up the back somewhere where you couldn't see them, but he would speak for 6 hours, and there was a group of guys whose job it was to reproduce 6 hours of the Rebbe's talking, and they used to do by Motzei Shabbos. They'd sit up all night writing it down. Sunday it was sent in to the Rebbe, and Tuesday the Rebbe would send it out annotated, marked, corrected. Yeah, I mean, and you're talking about the Rebbe's doing this by Tuesday. That's got nothing to do with all the other things that the Rebbe did, all the mail he answered, all the people. It's just the Rebbe slept two and a half hours a night, 2.5 hours a night. So this business of being able to not only learn but memorize it to the point that they can reproduce it, that's the third level, where the information is now changed into the minds and hearts of so many people, and there's so many guys who can do that today. Okay. So what's that to do with you and me at a personal level? Explains the Rebbe that there are 3 levels to our consciousness. Because bear in mind, we are created. The world is purposeful. Let's get that straight. Step number 1, understanding bedrock, basic foundation stone, everything is purposeful. Hashem has not created this as a jungle, as a lottery, as have wild coincidences. Everything is purposeful. A human being has 2 nostrils in his nose for a reason. He's got a tongue for a reason. He has saliva for a reason. He has teeth for a reason. The workings of all of that are all automatic. You don't interfere and say, I'm going to be a good chewer today, or I'm going to be a good, I'm going to make good mucus for my nose today. It's all going on, and it's all purposeful. And the whole ecosystem is and that's echoes right throughout the whole of creation. So what's it to do with these 3 tukufas, these 3 periods are going to be 3 periods for you and me as well, because the world is purposeful. So if Hashem has delineated these things as a matter of Torah, even though you need a Rebbe to flesh them out, they're going to be constants. So the constant is that the first Sedra was an arousal from above, that you've got Hashem creating Gashmias. The second Sedra is about the world in its physical state, and okay, it's inadequate for a certain period of time, but it ends well, as the Hayoim Yom says. But the third one is the combination, or the preparation for that combination of the 2. And the preparation for that combination of the 2 is from Avram Avinu. It's from mankind. It's from Jews. The fulfillment of it is not from Jews, it's from God. That's after Matan Torah. But those 3 periods are 3 aspects of your and my life. There is an aspect of your and my life that is receiving your blessings from Hashem and being conscious of those blessings. Being conscious of the fact that it is an absolute miracle that you know how to walk. It's an absolute miracle that you can pick your nose. How do you know how to pick your nose? Who gives you the koyach to pick your nose? How come you've got fingers that work to do that, to pick your nose? And not think about it. So there is, and that's why we get up in the morning, and after Moedei Ani and Nagelwasser, you go in and you say brachas. And saying those brachas is a very important part of the day. Now, am I asserting that when I stand and say the brachas, I concentrate on every one of them every day? I wish. It's not true. And unfortunately, most people take everything for granted. The Rebbe never took any of this for granted. The Rebbe never said one word, Baal Peh. You know that when he was davening, the Rebbe never davened Balpin, didn't daven off by heart. Did he know the davening off by heart? He had libraries of commentaries in Sigas and Maimorim on every word in davening and Tehillim, but the Rebbe never didn't use a siddur. He would say, he would make kiddush out of a siddur. He'd say the brachas after eating with a siddur. So there is a requirement to focus on what you're saying. Now, most people, I don't know about most people, I can tell you, Kremnizer, you get up in the morning, you say the blah, 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 and you run through the brachas one after the other, and you potter, and you go and make tea, or whatever it is that you do. So, but once in a while, for goodness sake, one has to stop, and one has to understand that you're a walking miracle. And that the fact that you're a member of Am Yisrael and Am Yisrael have been burned and gassed and tortured and speared and crucified and we're still here. And you have to understand that you're a miracle. Why are you still here? Not because you're choosing God, but because you've been chosen by Hashem to do a certain job. What is that job? To make the difference between the first and the second Sedra rolled into the third Sedra, which is that the spiritual should be able to be brought down and dug into the soil of the physical, and that the physical should be elevated to the point that it's spiritual. And there's only one nation on this planet that can do that, and that's Am Yisrael. Does that mean that we're superior beings? We're not. We've got a different job to do. But the penny's got to drop that if you've got that job to do, you must have the equipment to do it. It makes no sense, it makes no logical sense whatsoever to suggest that Hashem is going to give you and me the ability to add physicality into spirituality or bring spirituality into physicality if you didn't have the tools to do it. If you've got a broken leg, it would be stupid to tell you to run in a marathon. If you've got to clean a window on the third floor of a house and you need a ladder, it's no use if the ladder only goes up one story. The ladder's got to go 3 stories. You've got to have the tools to do the job. Now, all of a sudden, this is a very big question on your and my responsibility. So is your and my responsibility really to get the new Ferrari, or really to do half of the stupid things that we spend our life focused on? When instead, and no one's saying that no one's saying that you've got to live a life which ignores physicality. That's not Judaism. Our life is that we have to we want physicality. We ask Hashem on Rosh Hashanah for more and more and more physicality, better health, more money, nachas from our children. Why? So that we can bring that gashmias into ruchnias. That's why we want it. You don't want it for the car alone. You want it for. I'll never forget. I was an idiot when I was young, and I'd been married about 4 or 5 years. I can't remember. And we were driving. I mean, nobody cares about this, but I'm just telling you that we were driving through a car sales yard, and there was a Rolls Royce for sale. It was a silver shadow Rolls Royce, and there was a sign on it saying "less than you think." And it was beautiful. It was blue, and it had silver sides, and it was blue. And I was with Anne, and I said, mind if we stop and have a look at this? And she said, you crazy. So I said, I just wanted to have a look. So I went in. Now, the car was $18,999. And that was at a time when a new Holden was about that price.
So it's a Metzia.
Huh? Metzia. And so I open up the doors, and inside is all this timber, and it's shiny, and the leather's shiny. And I look at the speedo, it's done 80,000 miles. And I said, oh, it's done 80,000 miles. And the salesman says, it's not even run in, you know.
No, you
Anyway, cut a long story short, I bought it.
Whoa!
Like an idiot, I bought this car. And I can't tell you the hatred that you endure if you're stupid enough to do that. People hate you on the street. We were in a traffic jam one day, and I'm sitting in this traffic jam with Anne. I think we were going to the mountains, and we stopped at this, and the guy in the car next to me is in the back seat, not the driver. He takes off his pants and he sticks took us up to the window to show me what an idiot I am. Anyway, so at that time we were sending out Rabbi Philman. I'd already been lassoed by Rabbi Philman, and we were learning together, and he said that it's time that I took our daughter out of Moriah and put her into yeshiva. Now, yeshiva was one building, 6 kids in each class, poverty-stricken, but I was on fire with what I was learning, so I said, yeah, good idea. I went home, said to Anne, would you mind if we put Nikki into yeshiva? She said no, she doesn't mind, but then my in-laws and my mother my parents said, you know, one thing that you want to experiment to be a Meshugana, but why are you going to check your children, you know? So
Good point.
It's very difficult with that sort of pressure, but anyway, I did it. I put her into it. And so now what's to become with this Rolls Royce? So I went to see Rabbi Philman, and I said to him, I think I've got to sell the Rolls Royce because I can't come to yeshiva in this car with people taking off their trousers in the back of the... And to my amazement, Rabbi Philman said, then you don't understand the first thing about having that Rolls Royce. If you have the Rolls Royce for the reasons that you want the Rolls Royce, you should sell it. You're quite right, because it's a disgrace. But if you're going to use that Rolls Royce to give kids lifts to school and help pick up people and help go and get parcels and go and help at the school and help them, then you should keep the Rolls Royce. Right? This is what we're talking about. It's a matter of your and my relationship with Gashmias, the Gashmias that we want and the Gashmias that we use, has to be for the purpose of understanding that it's got a level of preciousness, certainly, of its own, but that level of preciousness needs to be fed by a perspective that you've been given that piece of Gashmias in order to elevate it. And that elevation is not something which is compulsory, because you're going to get free choice of what you do with it. But if you want to live as a real Jew with all the nachas and happiness and satisfaction and calm life, then that needs to be your perspective. And it's amazing that you do a sikha like this, which basically starts off by saying this. There are first 3 sedras. One is very happy because it's Hashem creating the world, light coming from up down. Second one's a bit unhappy in the middle because so many people die and are destroyed, but it ends up all right because they come out of the Teva and that. And the third one is Avraham Avinu getting ready for Matan Torah. And how can you tell? Because he davens for Sdoim and Amora, unlike Noach, who doesn't even daven for anybody, doesn't bring anybody into the teva. So, but really what the Rebbe is saying is, and he says it very openly, he says, what's this to do with you and my avoider? It's to do with we need, as Jews, to be fulfilled, happy, working agents of Hashem, shlukim of Hashem, to elevate nature into spirituality and bring spirituality into nature. You need to have this perspective. You need to have the perspective that we are chosen to do this job. It's a difficult job. You want to know how difficult this job is? I've said, I don't know who was at the Sikha. There's an amazing Sikha about the snare, the burning bush. Everyone knows the story with the burning bush, that Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu runs after a sheep that runs away, and he encounters God in front of the bush, and the bush is burning, but it's not consumed, is the word in English. And Noach and Avram and Moshe Rabbeinu covers his face and runs away, and Hashem invites him to look, and he doesn't look, he doesn't want to look, and then there's a whole series of explanations in the Midrash that this bush is Am Yisrael, and it's on fire because our life is a life of difficulty. The Jew's life is not easy. Our history is a river of blood, but we are not consumed. That's the point about the book. And why did Moshe Rabbeinu not look into it? I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but he doesn't look in there because Hashem is going to explain to him why it's so important that Holocaust is necessary, that Khmelnytsky is necessary, and Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, you want me to understand why evil is good? I understand that everything that comes from you is good, but I don't want to understand it. And we don't want, and I can't fight it. In order for me to fight evil, I've got to hate evil, not understand it. So I don't want to understand it. I want to. If you're engaging me as a shliach to fight evil, then I'm not understanding the evil. I'm not looking at your bush. And it's very bad news to me that it's burning. It's very good news that we're not consumed, but it's very bad news to me that it's burning. And why are you doing that to us? So Hashem says, I'll show you. He says, don't show me. I don't want to know. And you should know that that's the attitude of the Rebbeim with Hashem in the Holocaust. Exactly the same thing. We don't. Do we forgive Hashem for the Holocaust? It's a language that we don't understand. Our job is not to understand Hashem. Our job is to do what He tells us to do. We got a Torah, we got mitzvahs. That's what we have to do, and that's our job. And it's not our job to understand Hashem. It's not our job to look in the burning bush. It's not our job. Our job is to get the job done. What is the job? To introduce spirituality into physicality and physicality into spirituality. Who does that? Jews do it. Why? Because we're chosen to do the job. You're telling me that your life's difficult. I'm telling you that my life's difficult. First of all, first answer to that is, so what? So what? Second answer to that is that if your life is difficult and my life is difficult, it only means that Hashem has sufficient faith in you and me to get the job done, that He's going to give you these problems. Because if you don't have the tools to deal with it, if you don't have a ladder that goes up 3 stories, it's pointless telling you to wash the windows on the 3rd floor. So if Hashem is telling you to wash the windows on the 3rd floor, you can be certain that somewhere or other you've got to have a ladder which reaches the 3rd floor. And somehow or other, and everybody has their nisyonis, everybody has their tests. I keep saying this, and everybody should keep saying it to themselves always. But Tzemach Tzedek says in Derek Mitzvah Secha, which is his fundamental work, that the only reason, not one of the reasons, the only reason a neshama has a yerida into a guf, a neshama descends into a body, is for tests. That is the only reason. So you and I are going to be tested every day of our lives. May they be as little as possible. That's what we daven for every day. But the reality is that those tests, every time you go through one of those tests and are the conqueror of that test, you're adding more light. You're bringing the Dirabatak in closer. You're bringing precipitating the Shia communally. So let's just do it. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Lama.